Hey everyone, this is bad. I've been falsely accused of being in a conspiracy. And it's absolute. No, it wasn't. There was no conspiracy after all. Ultra Galaxy Fight is a limited web series produced by Tsuburaya Productions. We've got 2 installments under this title so far, New Generation Heroes in 2019 and The Absolute Conspiracy in 2020. New Generation Heroes focus on the New Generation Heroes facing threats to the galaxy, teaming up as New Generation Heroes, and the New Generation Heroes save the day. It also led directly into the beginning of Ultraman Taiga's story. This one was pretty self-contained. Each episode was about 5 minutes long and could be enjoyed as a movie when all of them came out. It was also Ultraman Reboot's first official appearance in the mainstream universe. Then in 2020, Tsuburaya announced The Absolute Conspiracy, a new Ultra Galaxy Fight. It was looking way more ambitious, with more fan favorites returning, new enemies, intriguing scenes from the trailer. This was looking to be a hype machine. Not only that, but the episode's length were increased from New Generation Heroes 5 minutes to 10 minutes long episodes. Before its premiere on the 22nd November, we were drip-fed with info like voice actors for Japanese and English dubs, synopsis, more trailers until the show premiered. This might be a good point for those who haven't watched The Absolute Conspiracy yet to step away. From here on out, it's gonna be spoiler mania, or else we're gonna have a real conspiracy on our hands. Hey, what the heck? In a really convoluted nutshell, The Absolute Conspiracy is about the appearance of a new threat named Absolute Tartarus and his mysterious actions that lead to dangerous incidents that the Ultraman need to take care of. It's spanned across 3 parts. The first part is the most standalone. Its events take place in a rather self-contained manner, but serve well to set up the rest of the show. Ultraman Reboot and Max investigate planet Mikarito, but Max is caught, and Reboot makes it his mission to save him. All the while make more threats pop up as Leukocyte, which Ultraman AT takes care of. In the end, Tartarus reveals himself to the heroes, making them wary of his presence. This part, in my opinion, was non-stop action, and of course, being the first part, was still riding the hype and in my opinion managed to deliver. We were expecting to see Ultras that have not returned in a while, and we immediately got that here. We saw Max, Great, Powered, 80, they all got an amazing showing, and not to mention the surprises here are easily the best. Ultraman Legend and Ultraman Xenon showing up was the first time I actually physically jumped when I watching the show. Part 1 did set up a lot too. Tartarus' plan, the Galaxy Rescue Force, so there's a lot to solve in the following episodes. And then there's this guy who also raised a lot of eyebrows at his cameo appearance in the end. Part 2 takes a bit of a breather by showing the past of Ultraman Belial and Ultraman Tregear in detail. However, this isn't the past that we knew of, branching off in a different direction due to Tartarus' influence. They didn't become the villains we're familiar with, but instead they got enhancement from Tartarus and still became a different form of villain. The finale of this part brings us to the present and involved the Ultra Brothers versus the Gua Brothers, whom were supposed to already have been defeated by X, Ginga and Victory. At this point, it's clear that Tartarus' plans involve time hijinks. The backstories were quite well done, to be honest, if not a bit melodramatic. Belial's closer look was honestly kind of rushed in my opinion and felt like they were just taking things off a list in terms of what we knew about Belial's backstory. Same with Tregear, but I do feel that Tregear's story flowed a lot better. However, these sudden flashbacks to the past may feel a bit jarring for new viewers, and it's not really helping that they're presenting to us what seems to be a different timeline. And then in the 3rd episode, we're back to the present. The jumps in timelines were quite confusing, but it may be what the makers of this show were aiming for, what with Tartarus' time-related plans. Anyway, as a result of this part, Belial and Tregear's parallel isotopes came about, and we got a glimpse of Absolute Tartarus' forces, and now the space garrison is definitely more vigilant, sending Zero to gather fighters. In the 3rd part, we're now in the present. The storyline here can actually be quite easily summed up. Zero recruits warriors for the Ultra League to stop Absolute Tartarus and find out what his plans are. We had some good moments for the Tri-Squad, Mebius as a mentor, Awkward Z, and more Grigio and Zero interactions. Now as the final arc? Oh boy, this arc had a lot to absolve. Who are the Absolutians? What are Tartarus' plans? What is the Absolute Conspiracy? What happens now that parallel isotopes were created? Why does Tartarus introduce himself in every episode? Tartarus was kind of hyped up as a really strong character, fighting on equal footing with U40's strongest warrior Jonius, but not strong enough to stick around while Legend is present. Yet, he looks like he has some big plan, so it would be quite unceremonious to defeat him right here. However, it would also be anticlimactic if he just got away and these threats weren't solved. Well, what do you think happened? The final climactic battle is the members of the Ultra League plus Mebius, Taiga, Zed, AT and Yulian versus the Zeton army. And while these guys were defeated, ultimately the Ultras lose as Tartarus escapes Ultraman Zero and takes Yulian as a hostage. Thus the reveal that the story will continue in a future installment. Now if you were like me and thought that this would be a self-contained story like New Generation Heroes, the first installment, then you'd be kind of underwhelmed because almost none of the mysteries got solved, and even more came up. What the heck is the kingdom? What was the conspiracy? Who is this guy? On the other hand, it did make a great hype generator for any new Ultraman project because they're likely to continue this plotline and address the mysteries. What the heck is the kingdom? What was the conspiracy? Who is this guy? Overall, I thought the plot wasn't bad considering it's mostly just setup and character glimpses. It did weave several older threads from previous installments. Belial's fall from grace, Hikari turning into Hunter Knight Tsurugi, Ultraman Reboot in the Galaxy Rescue Force, the Emperor invasion, and more. It also does create some confusion in the already rather convoluted Ultra timeline considering Tartarus did freak up the timeline. In terms of fights though, this one knocked it out of the park. As one of the successors of the legendary Ultra Fight series, a series all about fights and not much else, the Absolute Conspiracy has a lot of fights, and all of them were delights to watch. Courtesy of Koichi Sakamoto, series director of Ultraman Ginga S, Ultraman Jeet, several Super Sentai and Kamen Rider shows, the guy is an excellent fight director and director overall. Ultraman AT vs Leukocyte, a terrific showing for a member of the Ultra Brothers, as the monster was the final kaiju in RB, so it showed AT's chops as one of the elite warriors. We got Neos 721, Cosmos Justice in AT vs an enraged Leukocyte in Jimaira, Ultraman Max and Reboot vs Maga Orochi, only for Ultraman Xenon to show up. Now these guys, Xenon and Legend, were absolute surprises since they were never mentioned in any promotional material, and it was their first proper appearance ever since their debut shows. Ultraman Powered vs Hellbearers or any of his fights in general. I really like what they did with him here. In his own show, the fights were very slow paced and weren't really fights at all, mostly just touching and pushing. This is because the suits were really fragile, so they had to fight as slowly as they can. The Absolute Conspiracy reworked this into a legitimate fighting style, making Powered's pushes become palm blasts. That's really clever. They did this faithful fighting style thing with all of the Ultraman. You can see it in Great's moves, Ultraman Reboots, Silat movements, even Mebius looked the way he fights in his home series. But the gold standard of fights was achieved with the Ultra Brothers versus the Gua Brothers, Mole Spectre and Judah Spectre. Oh my god, is the choreography so flawless! The intensity of each Ultras, them using their special techniques close quarters, being faithful to their fighting techniques, and ending it with them fusing into Super Ultraman Taro once more was the cherry on top. Another fight I particularly liked was Ultraman Junius vs Absolute Tartarus. I'm not good at describing fights much, but I say this bout was really manly, or a macho fight if you will, and like AT, showcased Junius' capabilities. This has always been my standard. And a lot of these fights were simply enhanced by the music and sound design too. It's a big level of hype when an Ultraman's theme song plays when it's their moment to shine, like Max's theme song playing when he, Reboot and Xenon fought Maga Orochi, Mebius' theme song when he fought the Zetons, and best of all, the Ultra Brothers' theme in their battle. And it doesn't stop there. The sounds they make in battle are incredibly faithful to their origin shows. Andromelo's sound effects, each of the little distinct sound effects of the Ultraman when they show up, like AT's, Mebius, and Taro's. I mean, Tsuburaya has been doing this for a while, but I feel this attention to detail should and will always be appreciated. The Absolute Conspiracy has a big number of characters. Looking at the poster, you'll see just how many characters there are, and even the ones not in the poster. Some older characters fans were clamoring for were shown off, so it made sense to be excited to see them again. Thus, there were some concerns on whether this special would give everyone a time to shine, or if it would give focus to characters with a lot of screen time in recent entries. Regarding this, yeah, we were kind of expecting too much if we thought Powered would be the one to defeat Tartarus. The poster already kind of tells us the main characters according to their size in the poster. Clearly the poster boy, Zero, will be a major character, and Reboot, the breakout character from last Ultra Galaxy fight, would contribute a lot too. However, I thought that the series managed to find a great middle ground between pandering too much and sidelining characters. I would say AT, Yulian, Hikari, Powered, Great, Max, and Junius got the better end of the stick. AT and Yulian play a big role here. actively contributing to understand Tartarus' plans, and the latter becomes a driving force for the Ultraman to stop the Absolutians at the end. Ultraman Hikari became an even greater miracle worker here, putting out analysis straight out of nowhere, and later his predicament of Hunter Knight Tsurugi was explored a bit more again, and touched his relationship with Ultraman Tregear. Powered and Ultraman Great showed up together to train Reboot, a not so subtle nod to the fact that they're all foreign Ultras, Great produced in Australia, Powered in America, and Reboot in Malaysia. Now, if they only showed up to train Reboot, that would be unsatisfactory, but they also showed up to fight Hellberus and Alien Sran with Reboot, showcasing their fighting styles. Now that's good. Ultraman Max got some good moments in the first part, and Junius got to show off his caliber. Now, on the other hand, some characters I did feel were a bit underwhelming were Mebius, Neos, 721, Andromelos, and Xenon. Okay, I'm gonna be frank.
You're not Frank. You're Meek Ale.
I was most excited for Mebius' return. He hasn't done a lot in quite some time. Around before Absolute Conspiracy aired, Mebius showed up in Ultraman Z's voice drama, supposedly as a precursor to his role in the Absolute Conspiracy. Sure, he did have his moments training Z and acting as a cool mentor to both him and Taiga, and he got his theme song moment against the Zetons in episode 9, but after that, he does nothing in this fight, letting the Ultra League take the spotlight. I'm fine with this, but they could at least show Mebius fighting alongside the other Ultras who showed up. It would feel way more natural, and they already did do it with Yulian working with Grigio. Ultraman Neos and 721 did help AT out against Leugocyte, but that's kind of all they did. It almost felt like they were no-name Ultraman, especially since Cosmos and Justice showed up later to even the odds, making Neos and 721 feel admittedly lame. Andromelos' appearance here was also rather inconsequential. He's basically just extra muscle against the threats. But at least a lot of fans were happy to see him back, and his short interaction with Zoffy was nice to see considering their history. Ultraman Xenon's appearance was super hype, and I'm happy with the way he was used here, except he's suddenly missing during the debrief later with all the Ultras involved. Just putting him next to everyone else in line would have been enough to make it feel natural. Now, the Absolute Conspiracy introduced some characters to the main canon, namely Sora and Fear Demon Z. Both of these characters were from stage shows. Sora added to the still extremely small Science Bureau and provided some form of relationship to Ultraman Reboot. Fear Demon Z's reintroduction made sense and made for an alright leader for the Zeton army, but the best part was Ultraman Z's retort to both of them having the same name. I've waited for this my whole life. In terms of new characters, we have the parallel isotopes of Belial and Tregear, basically a fancy way of saying an alternate universe counterpart. I don't know if you can consider these guys new characters per se. The main universe, Belial and Tregear, were supposedly already defeated for good, so the parallel isotopes provide an opportunity for Tsuburaya to keep milking these characters. Their personalities do seem to stay the same. However, the even more important new character here is none other than Absolute Tartarus, a big bad who sort of looks like an Ultraman. He has a penchant for introducing himself.
I am Absolute Tartarus.
And making a beeline for it. Except against Zero. Dude loves to beat up Zero. At the end, his motives are somewhat clear. He's kidnapped Yulian as a hostage to force the Ultras to surrender their planet, to turn it into the Kingdom. Whatever that is. As a villain, Tartarus is alright. He's voiced by the excellent Junichi Suwabe, known for voicing Abakyo from JoJo and Sukuna from Jujutsu Kaisen. He's got the power to back up his bark, although his actions do look cowardly if not calculating. For a guy who calls himself an absolute life form, he runs away from fights frequently and overwhelms Ultraman only when they're weakened, like when he attacked 80 Squad after they beat Leugocyte, and blasting Zero after he traded blows with Belial and Tregear. From what it looked like, he is a manipulative and ruthless villain, and he did technically win by the end of the show. There's more to expect from him in the future installments though, and his design is actually great. The gold does provide a strong contrast to the Ultraman Silver, and so do his organic looking muscles and ancient looking getup. The Absolute Conspiracy has been called by many to be the Ultraman version of Marvel's Avengers Infinity War. Let's see, loads of characters team up against one threatening big bad who ultimately wins in the end? Yeah, from that angle it sure is. But of course, the Absolute Conspiracy itself is just one part of a larger story arc, apparently called the Kingdom. Soon after the end of this miniseries, Tsuburaya unveiled this poster about The Kingdom is Coming, showing 3 more silhouetted figures alongside Tartarus. These are probably more Absolutians, and they will most likely make their appearance in the next Ultra Galaxy fight, or maybe even as a villain in Ultraman Trigger. When you look at it as a big story saga, the Absolute Conspiracy does its job as a prelude well, and it also manages to deliver on some satisfying climaxes in between, making this a great experience on its own too. It's exciting that this route is taken, because there is potential for big events on the scale that we haven't seen before, as the Absolutians do feel hyped up to be a serious threat to all of the Ultramen. On the other hand, I do hope that this doesn't mean every single installment would connect to each other. For instance, the Kingdom storyline would sprawl through the Absolute Conspiracy, Ultraman Z, Ultraman Trigger, the Kingdom, and more, because the great thing about Ultraman is that even if there are some ties to previous events, the shows themselves don't rely on them too heavily and can be enjoyed as a standalone, with a few exceptions. Although considering Z hardly called back to the events of the Absolute Conspiracy despite taking place right after it, I think we're in safe hands.
And that was Ultra Galaxy Fight: The Absolute Conspiracy. Definitely one of the most hyped Ultraman events in recent years, and to make things even better, it was freely available on YouTube in both Japanese and English audio. On a final note, I'm really looking forward to what's next in this exciting new saga they're rolling out for us. And on a final note, what are you still doing here?